We're coming to you live for the Built for Tough Studio. Boomer Esiason, Greg Giannotti. It's Boomer and Gio on the Fan. Simulcast across the country on CBS Sports Network. And wherever you are on the free Odyssey app. Good Thursday morning. A feel-good Thursday because tomorrow is the big feel-good summer Friday of the year. And we will not be here for 4th of July. But July 3rd and things with the baseball teams could have been totally a disaster. Obviously, for the Yankees, it's still a very rough one, but the Mets come back in the second leg of the doubleheader and show some offense and show some fight and get a win. So we'll get into all of that. The Knicks finally naming Mike Brown the head coach. When they fired Tibbs, were they thinking Mike Brown? No, probably not, but they ended up on Mike Brown. So we will see. As Rick Pitino said when he was on with BT and Sal, whoever got this job was going to have the most pressure on him than any Knicks coach in his lifetime since he's been a Knicks fan as a kid, and that's exactly what it is. And oh, by the way, when you go through a draft and you go through free agency and you're choice number 7, don't you think that rotations and decisions and a lot of that is going to be coming from up top? Mike Brown has got a lot of experience, a lot of respect in the league. I hope this works out. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, Jay. And I was reading this morning, one of the writers was talking about how this could be akin to Joe Torre taking over the Yankees from Buck Showalter. Maybe, maybe not. We'll have to see. But it's a safe pick. It's not a pick that is wrought in controversy by any stretch of the imagination, other than the fact that we still don't know why they fired Tom Thibodeau. They've been building the roster. They have a much better bench, it looks like, right now, considering that they added 2 valuable pieces that are going to come off the bench. I think he is inheriting a team in a conference where there will be enormous expectations. And there will be pressure. Pressure is a privilege in this case because he doesn't have a bad team. He has a good team that he's inheriting that went all the way to the Eastern Conference Championship. So am I overly elated about this like I was about Mike Sullivan coming to the Rangers? No, I'm not. I mean, I'm just – what I am is like, let's see what he can do. I'm not against it. I'm certainly not going to go against all the experience that he had with LeBron James early on in LeBron's career, his experience with Kobe Bryant, the fact that he's been a head coach in 4 different places. It's all a part of the NBA package. That this is what happens. And again, I don't want to use the word recycled, but it kind of feels that way to me, but it also feels that they wanted a guy with experience. They didn't want somebody that didn't have any experience. And at least I can sit here and say that his over 700 wins, the success that he had with LeBron, the respect that he has in the league, kind of reminds me of hiring Tom Thibodeau.
Yes, now they're different, right? So it feels almost lateral in a sense. Different type of guys, different type of philosophy. Obviously, Tibbs is a little more of a grinder, not from a work ethic standpoint. He's just, always basketball. He holds himself up in a hotel room and doesn't talk to anybody. And I think Mike Brown's got a little more stuff going on in his life. And I think that kind of helps when you're a head coach, you're able to relate to the players. But it does feel lateral. I mean, if you go through the resumes, they are very, very similar. Now, Tom Thibodeau wasn't on a bunch of staffs that won NBA championships like Mike Brown was. And Tibbs didn't go to a finals, I don't believe, where obviously Mike Brown did with LeBron. But, yeah, it's a similar guy. Now, the things that I really love about it is the experience. I mean, and we're talking top-level NBA pressure experience that he has. Yeah. So when we ask for that in a situation like this, we don't want a first-time head coach. When we ask for that for the Jets and we didn't want a first-time head coach, this is the type of guy that you want, is someone who has been there, hasn't had the ultimate success as a head coach, but he's been there. The thing I don't like about it, though, is I really believe that because Leon Rose, whoever else, Jim Dolan, had a problem with the way Tibbs was doing things, that when Mike Brown is hired after unless something big happens here, but most of the offseason is done for the Knicks, that if things are not going exactly the way they want, there's going to be a lot of influence from the front office, and that just creates a bad environment of you're not playing this guy enough. You're not playing that guy enough. We didn't bring you in here to sit that guy. So I just hope the collaboration between these guys, because I don't know the previous relationship. Tibbs and Leon Rose had a relationship for years and years and years prior to this. So I just hope that this relationship is collaborative and not like I'm going to tell you what to do.
I mean, part of me feels like World Wide West has got his fingers all
over
this thing.
Yeah. I mean, whoever.
And that's fine. I mean, look, he's going to be under enormous pressure. I don't know how much different his system is. They all play pick and rolls. I don't know what, his demand level is, which is going to be really important. By the way, he is inheriting a very good group of guys, and we've liked the team. We like the way the team has been built. I think we both like the additions here this offseason, free agency-wise. I mean, I know that listening to Evan and Tiki yesterday, they were talking about there was a potential that they were looking at Ben Simmons, and I'm like, you know what? I think we got serious people here now. I think we got serious players here. I think we have players like Jordan Clarkson and Yabusele who are going to understand their roles. They're going to be serious NBA off-the-bench players that are going to try to help this team get over the top. I just want serious players. I want players who want to play. I don't want players who are oft injured. I want players who give a crap. And I really feel like, since, Thibodeau got here and Leon Rose got here, and I guess you could say Worldwide West, that they've tried to bring in players who kind of mirrored that kind of thinking. And I hope that by adding these two guys, by adding Mike Brown, that the dynamics will change a little bit because they'll play the bench more. That's what I'm assuming. That's probably the biggest knock against Tibbs when he was fired. But again, like I said, yes, lateral move, but experienced, which is a good thing. Now it's a question of whether or not he's that much different than Thibodeau when it comes to offense and defensive strategy, systems, how they play, and then how they react to the way he is teaching them or the way he is coaching them to get what he wants out of them and where he sees the need for improvement.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of falls in the middle of the home run hire and then the crazy hire, because we had talked about both of those things. Like the home run hire would have been to bring in Jason Kidd or get Jay Wright to come here or something like that. The crazy hire would have been the Dawn Staley or that guy Micah Nori, who has never been a head coach and he had to sound like he was from the South. Those things would have been the nutso hires, and this falls in the middle, closer to the home run than the nutso. But it's it is. It really is the safest hire. Which I'm encouraged. I'm not thrilled. I'm encouraged. But as far as the Ben Simmons thing, before I forget, they are clearly trying to find a point guard with experience to come in and run the offense when Jalen Brunson is on the bench, because they want to give him more time during the regular season to maybe rest, and they probably want to, Deuce is a guy who loves to shoot. They're looking for, like, Russell. They looked at Russell Westbrook and Ben Simmons, which are two guys who can't shoot but can run an offense and have NBA experience. So those two guys I don't want on the team, but what I'm pulling from that is that's what they're looking for. They're looking for a point guard who's logged a lot of games in the NBA, who is going to run an offense that they trust when Jalen Brunson's on the bench, and or if he gets hurt and they need to make sure that someone competent can be out there the whole time.
And, if this whole thing is built around playing more players off your bench and less time on the court for the starting five, then the numbers for the starting five are going to be going down.
Yeah, I mean
the points, the rebounds, the assists, all the numbers that everybody looks at. Could there also be a lack of an all-star player on the team? Because if you want to play guys more, well, I mean, depending on how much more. What are we talking about?
Yeah,
like 3 minutes a game?
Yeah, I don't know, and I do believe if Tibbs had the bench that the Knicks have going into this season, he would have played more guys on the bench. You didn't have those guys. When you had DiVincenzo here, you had Hartenstein here, those guys were playing, and I know some of it was dictated by injury, but those guys were playing. And also, on the flip side of, the starters not getting as many minutes, if you think about it, I mean, it really impacts Mikal Bridges the most because he hasn't had that big payday yet where you got Jalen Brunson got paid, Karl Anthony Towns has a contract, OG Anunoby has a contract, so Bridges is the one guy there. But what it also does is gives guys on the bench opportunities to showcase themselves when they hit the free agency, like Isaiah Hartenstein did, and he cashed in big with the Oklahoma City Thunder. So,
by the way, I mean, they're sitting here. That Bridges is going to want an extension right now. And I think the max that they can give him is like 104 years, $150 million. I mean, you traded all these picks for him, and now he's here, and you got to believe his agent is in there saying it's time for an extension.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so that's another issue that you're dealing with right now that, you probably have moved away from just a little bit so you can get the coach hired, you can get some free agents hired. And the question is, do they give him the extension or do they move him? Because you can't just let him go to free agency and not get anything for him.
Well, I mean, I would give him an extension if it wasn't the max right now. I don't think you can give him the max. He wasn't a max player for the Knicks last year. Great couple of defensive plays back-to-back in the Boston series in games 1 and 2. Sometimes he would be finding that mid-range jumper, and it would be the instant offense for them. But, I mean, if you're giving him the max, that to me is a mistake.
I'm just telling you what the player's thinking. I'm not saying that's what you should give them. I'm just saying this is what the player is going to be wanting. It's the NBA, man. All these players want huge dollars. They want their future secure, and I'm totally down with the way that they're thinking. I'm just telling you that's the way they're thinking.
Yeah, and but does it mirror the Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson discussion about
different sport, different contractual rules, and the Jets do not have to give those guys.
Well, the Knicks don't have to give Mikal Bridges an extension. They don't have to.
They don't have to, but he's also going into the final year. Like the Jets still have control by picking up the 5th-year option, and then they can also tag the players. The NBA, you don't do that.
Right. But just in the similarities, I think, start and end with the fact that, this is a guy who wants a contract extension to not go into a lame duck year, and they don't have to do it. That's really the comparison. So, I mean, they might be getting pressure from the agent, but they don't necessarily have to do it. And if I'm on the Knicks side, I'm like, listen, I got to see more if I'm going to end up keeping you here for a long period of time.
I'm not comparing him to the type of player that I'm going to talk about. But there were 2 players, in particular in baseball, Aaron Judge and Pete Alonso, who did go to free agency.
Yeah.
They did allow them to go to free agency, and then they re-signed with their teams for different reasons. Aaron Judge could have went to a myriad of teams, and Pete Alonso didn't seem to get the offers that he thought he was going to get. So they both returned to their respective teams. As far as Mikal Bridges is concerned, that is an issue. That is going to be an issue for the Knicks. I'm not saying it's ugly. I'm just saying it's going to be an issue for the Knicks because you got to believe that the player is thinking that, it's time. It's time for me to get my extension.
Yeah, no, sure. And that'll be probably the next order of business for the Knicks now that they have gone through most of free agency and hired their head coach. Now,
This is interesting, right? They hired him when we left yesterday. We thought he would be hired today after we left.
Yeah, exactly.
But he got hired earlier, which is good.
But that doesn't. But they're going to do a press conference today? Probably not. They're going to wait till the 4th of July holiday and all of that stuff. So, but I mean, all right. So, are they going? Did they announce a press conference? And will that press conference include Leon Rose? Because we predicted this weeks ago that if they didn't speak before the new head coach announcement, that the entire press conference was going to be about why you fired Tibbs, because you haven't spoken yet. So like a real PR, now Leon Rose may go and hide again, I don't know, and it might just be someone else introducing Mike Brown, I'm not sure. But this is why a good PR person would say, all right, we got to get out in front of it, we got to talk about it, we have to close the book on that so we can open the next one, because that book is still open on Tibbs. No one has said anything about it. What the hell happened there? Why you fired him? Now you're going to introduce the next guy and try to move on and say, all right, this is the right guy. But every single person in that room and reporter is going to be asking questions about the previous guy, which just starts the whole thing off on a weird footing. So
again, a good reason why to hire an experienced guy that can sit up there and sit at least on some of the success that he had in the NBA. If that were an assistant coach that had not been a head coach before, we could have had ourselves, like one of those crazy press conferences where we all just would have walked away and said, "What did they just do?"
Yeah,
I mean, they're not. That's not the case here. This is an experienced guy who's been around the league. He's in his mid-50s. He should be able to handle anything that comes his way from a press conference. And by the way, he had nothing to do, as far as I'm concerned, with the firing of Tom Thibodeau. They fired Tom Thibodeau, and the next thing you know, unless there was something nefarious going on behind the scenes, which we haven't heard about, I mean, he's an innocent bystander and all of that stuff.
Sure.
And his focus has now got to be the future, not the past. The future of the Knicks, not the past of the Knicks. Like he may want to refer back to some of the great Knicks of yesteryear, of course, but I think he also has to be realistic and say, look, I got a really good team here. My job is to try to get us to a championship. That's all I care about. Because remember, when they fired Tibbs, what they said in their PR statement that they put out, and that was, we're all about championships, and I'm paraphrasing. We want to win a championship, and the reason we essentially fired the coach is we don't think he can get us there.
Yeah, and the things that you need to see from Mike Brown, we've talked a lot about the bench playing and those things and the rotations, whatever, but it's really unlocking the full potential consistently of Karl Anthony Towns. That is the biggest thing that this team needs. If he can be more consistent offensively and defensively, turns into more of a championship player, and Mike Brown is able to do that with him that people really haven't quite gotten to do yet. They get him there. He's so talented. He's so good. It's bits and spurts. But then when it comes to these really big moments, he's not there. So I think his tenure here is going to be defined by that more than anything.
I'll tell you one thing. Out of all the people that have come in here over the last 30 years, I'll say 30 years, Mike Brown inherits the best team the Knicks have had and the most thorough team that the Knicks have had, assuming that they add another legitimate point guard to be able to run the offense for maybe 10 minutes a night. So most coaches that have come in here have had awful rosters, bad dynamics, ownership that was in their ear, fans who were completely unhappy. This particular situation is maybe the best situation a Knick coach has ever been in since Jeff Van Gundy took over.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the best roster for sure, but is it, but it's also comes with the most pressures. You can look at it two different ways. I mean, Mike Brown's going to look at it the positive way, the glass half full.
Have it that way, man.
Yeah, no, of course, but it also means like there's like when you're a team that has no expectations and you build and you exceed those, like that Knicks team that first went into the, they played the Atlanta Hawks in that first round series. It was like okay, you're building towards something. Now what you've built towards now is an NBA Finals appearance or bust. So that's where he's got to go, but. Of course, you're looking at it like this is a great, great team that I am taking over. This is one of the most talented teams in the league that I get to coach.
In the Eastern Conference, definitely.
Well, yeah, I mean, they still are.
Well,
I could make a case they were the third best team. Actually, they were. They were the third best team in the league last year. So,
but the Western Conference is like an arms race out there. You know that, and I know that. So you just got to worry about the East right now. Just got to worry about getting through. Milwaukee now adding Miles Turner. I don't know what Cleveland's. They haven't done much.
No.
Boston's basically looks like they're punting on the season. I mean, there'll be some improved teams. I think Orlando's maybe improved.
Yeah, Orlando's going to be a pain in the neck.
Atlanta may be improved a little bit.
Porzingis and Detroit's. We saw them up and coming.
Yeah, but they're not doing all that much either. I mean, so you have by far, to me, I'm saying by far is probably a little bit too extreme. I would say that right now, I think they're the best team in the Eastern Conference. They have to be with these additions to the bench and with the returning starting five and the other two, Mitchell Robinson, assuming he stays here, and Miles McBride. Why wouldn't I think that they can't be the number one team in the Eastern Conference right now? Give me another team. Indiana? You think Indiana without
not without Halliburton, right? And Turner's gone. No, I mean
Bucks?
it's to me it's Cleveland. I mean, Cleveland.
What about the Bucks with Miles Turner and Giannis?
I don't.
And supposedly Giannis wanted Miles Turner.
No, he did, but he wanted him. He didn't. Yes, we mentioned this yesterday that it almost backfired on them in a sense. If Giannis was upset, he's like, I want Miles Turner, but I didn't know it was going to take this to get Miles Turner. But anyway, we talked about it yesterday. But I don't think that I'm not as I sit here today scared of Milwaukee. I'm more scared of Orlando than I would be of Milwaukee. To me, it's Cleveland for sure. I mean, they won over 60 games last year, for God's sakes, and no one's even talking about it.
And they beat the Knicks pretty regularly.
Yeah. So I mean that right there has got to be you got to give them credit heading into this season, even though it ended terribly against Indiana, like it ended terribly for the Knicks against Indiana. But yeah, I mean, they're right there. Bottom line is they are right there.
If they stay healthy, they're right there. They're the best roster that they have had in 20 years.
Yeah, easy to say for sure.